Welcome, everybody, to Cycle Jerks Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Stewart. Today, my co-host, Chris Padavana, he's out sick today, not feeling well, so we wish him well. Hope he's going to be feeling better here soon. But today's guest is CEO and founder of Trifundit. He's a pastor, an entrepreneur, leadership and marriage coach, podcaster, and he empowering professionals to lead significant lives. That sounds great. James Duvall,
Man, it's great
welcome to
to
the
be with you.
podcast. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm
That
ho-
all makes me sound better than what I actually am, for sure. So
well, you're humble too.
I appreciate that. So
Yeah. So, yeah, I was curious about the inspiration for Trifunded. If you could just explain what Trifunded is for our audience.
yeah, so Trifundit is a peer-to-peer fundraising platform that we created. You know, um, a lot of fundraising in the fitness area of cycling and running and so forth is very event-based. And after many years of organizing cycling events to raise money for a cause I'm passionate about, I realized that you're constantly going back and tapping the same people. So what Trifundit does is it allows every time that an individual goes out and rides their bike, it becomes a fundraising event. So we've created a platform that allows individuals to invite friends and family at a very minimal amount, a minimum of a penny a mile to support an athlete in their cause that they're passionate about.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, I know, I've done some events where I've raised money, and at one point the plan was I was gonna. So the events I did, they were Everestings, right, where you climb, you do these hill
Yeah,
repeats. And so at one point I was thinking, I'm going to do one every year. And then
yeah.
I did my first one. And then we raised some money for the Sonoma County fire victims because it was right after the
Hmm.
big Northern California, the first, not the first, you can't really say the first, but
Right.
a big one in Sonoma County. And then it was in 2017, I believe the fire was. And so I did it in 2018. And then my buddy, so I invited a bunch of people to join me to do laps on this climb
Yeah.
throughout the day. And one of my friends had come, and his biggest day was like 9,000 feet, and he did 20,000 feet that day. And he committed to doing an Everest the next summer. So I went and did it with him, but we didn't do any charity. And I was thinking that I was just thinking, should I ask again and set up
Yeah.
this thing? I used this company called Rally Up.
Yep.
So it's similar to GoFundMe or whatever, but
Hmm.
they do everything no charge. So
Yeah.
every penny that you raise goes to the cause that you're raising it for, and so that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but marketing and promoting it, um, they don't get involved with that at all, and
Right.
it would be nice to have another arm to assist with those types of things, and I did one another uh, the following year. So 2 years after the first one, and that one I did for the Men's Health Movember movement, and
Okay.
again they did put something up on social media about it, but it's just a quick hit and that's it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so how does Trifundit help the athletes?
Yeah.
Is there any marketing arm to it, or is it more just an app?
Yeah. Well, I think, my experience with fundraising is very similar to yours. We started an event and I just, got some friends together and we were in Florida. So we put an event to ride down the east coast of Florida, 300
Hmm.
miles over 3 days. And there's like 22 of us. And we raised like $50,000, which is really
Wow.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And then we, didn't know how exhausting it was going to be to put an event like that together and all the logistics. And so we took a year off and then a year became 2 years and then COVID hit and the world shut down. And then
Yeah.
when it, started opening back up, we started doing the ride again. So we've done four rides and getting ready to do our fifth one this coming January. And we raised, you know, $200,000 towards the cause. Our cause is fighting human trafficking. But um, what we found was that, again, like yourself, you're going back to the same people, to the same well, and on an event like that, you're asking people to kind of give, a larger amount of money than, they have to actually think about it. And so what we've done is we've provided tools that allow an individual to just ask their friends and family via text messaging, social, email. We provide scripts for them to use,
Mhm.
and basically says, "Hey, here's the cause I'm riding for this year," and we try to challenge over like a year's time because it is lifestyle, and so you go and ride one event and maybe you're doing 100 miles, but you know throughout the year, you're probably riding thousands of miles. The average
Yeah.
cyclist, I think, rides between 3,500 and 5,000 if you take the low end and the really high end
Hmm.
cyclists. So, if all those miles could be a fundraising effort, then you can actually compound the effect of the engagement and miles you're raising. So, for example, from myself, I when we launched the platform, I was kind of obviously the beta tester since I'm, created
Yeah.
it. And in February, started using the tool. And just by doing my everyday cycling, I'm by no means like a, hardcore cyclist. I try to ride, 100, 125 miles a week. And, I've raised close to $4,000 just since February, just
Hmm.
by riding my bike. And for me, that's pretty powerful because for the nonprofit I ride with, that funds two rescue efforts for kids who are trapped in human trafficking. And so that's a direct impact of my engagement with cycling and using it, putting some purpose behind it, putting motivation. And I think for the athletes who are using Trifundit, it's also very motivational, inspirational. It's like I'm going to go out and do a few extra miles because I know if I do that, or if I push myself when the weather's a little bit crappy, that I can get out there. It's actually going for something other than just my, you know, own enjoyment of riding.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all right. So listen, you mentioned your charity is human trafficking. And
Hmm.
obviously, human trafficking is it's disgusting and
Yeah,
it's very scary. The lack of overall attention that it gets,
yeah,
the lack of awareness, and with all the there's all this talk about immigration and all these missing
yeah,
children. What was your specific? I mean, when it comes to
yeah,
picking a charity, right? It's like there's so many deserving. There's St. Jude. There's all kinds of,
yeah,
or they just hit you right in the heart. So, but you
yeah.
have focused in on human trafficking. So, can you speak to the motivation behind that?
Yeah, and I think for anybody who wants to raise money for a cause, there's probably some catalytic event or relationship, whether that's somebody in your family or a personal illness or personal sickness that you've had to overcome, and
Yeah.
that becomes kind of a keystone art piece for you, right?
Hmm.
For me, it was back in 2011. I was introduced to really the issue of human trafficking through the church I was working at, and in 2011 it was still a bit unknown, not as prevalent, or back then you always felt like human trafficking was something that happened in a third world country or
Yeah.
someplace else. But when I was really introduced to the fact that it's so prevalent here in the United States, and I had two young daughters at the time, and just kind of put my kids in the place of other kids who are being trafficked, and um, that kind of was kind of the starting point for me. A few years later, we actually opened a safe house on the east coast of Florida for minor girls who were trafficked out of the west coast of Florida, and that was actually the start of wanting to raise money for the cause. I wanted to do something, and had become an avid cyclist, and I thought, hey, why don't I put something together, a bunch of friends on our bike, and we raised some money. And so, and actually that's been kind of the motivation behind my cycling ever since. Our first
Mhm.
event was 2017, and for the last 7 years, I've every time I'm on my bike, I'm kind of was driven by that cause. And but I think that's the same for anything. And that's why with Trifundit, we broadened it. We have 9,000 different organizations that are available on our platform for people to choose from. So there's everything from any kind of medical research to human rights to, animals, that everybody has something different that they're passionate about. Mine just
Yeah.
happens to be, fighting human trafficking, um, but the idea again behind Trifundit was, what if you could just put purpose behind the miles that you're already doing? Mike, you guys already ride every day. You're going to put miles in. So what if you just, layered on top of that a cause that you're passionate about, invite some people to be a part of it?
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. When to your point about what motivates you to do something for a specific cause, you know, the it's funny 'cause I mean, I'm not a fireman. I don't have
Yeah,
a friend that was a fireman that was lost in a fire or anything like that. For me, when I saw it was just so just hit me so hard because I'd been through that area before, and then
yeah,
I was just try. It used to be part of my sales territory, but my
okay,
territory switched, and I do this other part now. But I drove through there after, and it just like hit me,
yeah,
and I didn't even have any idea what. I just felt like I needed to do something.
yeah,
But in retrospect, you think about, I mean, obviously that was it's important to the people in that area, locally it's important. But, when you look at subjects like, human trafficking or, St. Jude or some of the other ones, it's
yeah,
like, there's certainly a lot of other charities that I could have, um, you know, raised money for, but it was just in the moment I felt something and
yeah,
it inspired me to do it. But yeah, thinking of human trafficking, and it's interesting that I didn't when I first heard of Trifunded, I didn't realize that that was your big charity, and I was listening to something with Chris Hansen, the guy
hmm
from To Catch a Predator,
hmm
and he was saying that when he first started that show, he thought that it was just going to be a couple episodes because he
yeah.
didn't really realize how many, and they're now in their 22nd season of
It's crazy.
this. Yeah, yeah, like I said, people just don't understand how, and that's a little different than sex trafficking,
Yeah,
but it's gives you an idea of just how big of issue, uh, you know, pedophilia or whatever you want to
yeah,
call it, minor attracted person. Now they're trying to call it, which I really don't like that terminology at all. I feel like it really changes the, it doesn't
it
sound,
softens it, doesn't
it
it?
really does. And it's like
It
if there's one
softens it
thing that
like,
should not be softened in this
yeah,
life,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, again, Trifund, it's not just about human trafficking, but that is my cause. And,
Yeah.
I mean, if you jumped on your computer right now and Googled, human trafficking, stories, you're going to find a dozen or so relevant like to today stories because it's like again back in 2011 you didn't hear a lot about it
Yeah.
predominantly in the media or anything, but now you hear about it almost every day in the news, or again with what's happening with migration and the border and so forth. It's become a very hot issue. But I was also thinking, just as you're talking about like the fires and so forth. Um, I think one of the cool things that we're excited about, with like Trifund, is we have some organizations on our platform, like for example, like Convoy of Hope or Samaritan's Purse, like, and you see, what happened with the hurricanes that hit North Carolina and Georgia, or you see these wildfires or disasters that happen, and there's a lot of organizations that's what that's what their whole mission is, is to be boots on the ground and provide food and care and support. And so like, as a cyclist, if you see those things and you're like your heart's stirred towards like, the plight of humanity, losing everything or whatever, it's a great opportunity to like, what if you jumped on and connect with an organization, the Red Cross or whatever that's there, and you're constantly just supporting them on a regular basis instead of, because I think there's a lot of money that's raised in the moment of crisis.
Yeah.
But I think, we can also be very proactive, in our generosity and, philanthropy to organizations that are making a difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. Well, okay. So one of the things that we do on the podcast is we usually like to find out when did you get inspired to with cycling? When did
Mhm.
that first hit you? Did you grow up riding bike or where did
Yeah.
you start?
It's funny. I was thinking about this. I don't know if I've even ever told this story before. My first interest in cycling was probably when I was uh, 11, 12 years old. And I wanted to get a BMX bike. I had this Mongoose, a BMX bike with, orange magged wheels. And
Yeah.
it was my dream bike. And so I
Hmm.
went to my parents and I was like, hey, get me this bike. And it's really interesting. My dad, he's like, no, I'm not going to buy you the bike, but I'll help you earn the money for the bike.
Oh.
And so when I look back at it, it was the craziest thing because, maybe it wasn't so crazy, but I actually collected aluminum cans for months to save up money to buy my first bike. My dad would actually take me around on Saturdays and Sundays after weekends at the bars, and I would dumpster dive into the dumpsters and throw all the aluminum cans. And I completely forgot about this until I was thinking
Yeah.
about getting ready for this podcast. But I mean, our garage would be full of these trash bags full of aluminum cans. And I actually saved up, I think, the $367, way back when to buy that mongoose. And I love that bike and would,
Yeah.
just I never raced or anything, but just the typical teenage kid jumping over everything and with your neighborhood kids, so
Yep.
forth. um I actually, when I got in high school, got involved in sports and have a background in music and so forth. So really my interest went a different place. And I really never crossed paths with cyclists or cycling again until around 2007. I was with some friends and we're on the trip, and we all realized that we had just put on some weight and we're overweight. And so we had actually challenged each other like a little contest to lose weight. So I thought I'm going to do something different. So I went out and bought a hybrid bike, a Jameis hybrid, and
Okay.
started riding that thing. And I remember I had some friends from South Africa that I ride with now, and I told him I got a bike, so he took me out, and he laughed at me the first time I rode because I was the typical newbie. I didn't have any spandex on, just had, athletic shorts, and the seat on the Jameis was like this massive seat, and so he ridiculed me for a while,
Uh-huh.
um, but then I really started enjoying it, and I rode that hybrid for months, and a buddy of mine would ride into back and forth from work together, about an hour and a half each way on our hybrids.
Whoa.
And then another friend saw us getting into it. He's like, "Hey, I have this road bike if you want to try it." It was an old airborne Zeppelin titanium frame bike,
Oh, wow.
and first time I got it, I fell in love with it and rode that bike. I think I put about, 10 or 15,000 miles on the bike and thought, okay, I think I need to get my own bike. And so bought my first, official new road bike and have really been riding, avidly ever since. I don't know what I would consider myself. I'm not like, I never raced. I've never, done some endurance stuff, um, try to get out, 5 or 6 times a week just to get miles in. So that's kind of my background in cycling.
Well, that's great. I mean, I think most people don't race,
Yeah,
that ride bikes. And
yeah,
like in my territory, I'm in Northern California, and so I have like the East Bay, and then I go up to Northern Nevada.
yeah,
And so I go from real urban city life to real rural areas. And, cyclists come in all different types. And, you know, like in the urban areas, it's not uncommon for me to have people that just commute, and
yeah,
it's just a commute tool to them. And
yep,
they don't have ambitions on riding on the weekends. They get plenty of riding in to and from work every day. And
yeah,
so on the weekends, they're
exactly,
looking to go do something else, go hiking or something,
exactly.
but, and then there's the hardcore, group ride people. And a lot of those
Yeah,
people don't race, but they trained for the group ride, and then they go do the group ride every week. And then there's the racers that filter in, make everybody humble.
yeah, yeah. You hang with them until you get dropped off the back. So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the things when we started, we started this event back in 2017. And we ride down the east coast of Florida. So it's 3 days, it's three century rides back to back. And we the kind of the fun thing is like, you have the guys who could do it in one day, that are on the ride.
Yeah.
And but the joy in this is the people who are newer or like have cycled but have never done anything like that long or extreme or in endurance, and actually helping kind of shepherd them along the way to, hey, you can do this. And at the end of that ride, when they've actually accomplished something like pretty
Oh, yeah.
massive, or ride over 300 miles in 3 days and not die.
Yeah.
It's a really cool opportunity to kind of stretch people and help them do something that they've never done before.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a joke that a couple of my friends have. It's brothers for life, right?
Yeah,
So you do these things together, and then there's this connection, this bond that you have where
yeah,
maybe you don't even, if it's something really unusual, like the people you're describing, they may not have that type of bond with anyone else in their life.
yeah, yeah,
And it's hard to explain if you haven't gone through it, but there's a lot of fun that happens, but there's also a lot of suffering. And then there's,
yeah,
you know, adversity at times. And so
yeah,
when you pull through something like that, a big event, 300 miles in 3 days, that's a big event.
yeah,
Even for an avid cyclist,
yeah, it is.
that's a big push. And
Yeah.
yeah, so there's that brothers for life kind of mentality that you have.
Yeah, it's funny actually. A little bit later today, I'm having lunch with, we call ourselves the BSG Bros, because there's four of us that's what we do. We ride together, and every year we try to do some big event. And we there's a cycling event in North Carolina called the Blood, Sweat, and Gears, and it's 100 miles one day up in the mountains, and it's a race. You can, if you want to be one of those guys. I'm
All
not one of
right.
those guys,
Yeah.
but we've done it 3 or 4 years, and it's a bonding. There's a just a communal thing about it that's really powerful when you push yourself and hold each other accountable and do some things together and experience uh, the ups and downs of it. That's really cool in the cycling community.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I think it bonds all of us together, brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Um, so you have an event coming up here. Is it this weekend?
Uh, no, it's actually in January.
Oh,
You
okay.
talking about our cycling event? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we always do it around Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, and but we're actually on the last trek of getting all the arrangements for it done. But we'll, after this ride, we'll have had close to 100 different cyclists who will have completed this event.
Okay. Wow, great.
Yeah.
And I thought there was an expo or something coming up this weekend. Is
Oh
that?
yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually going to be setting up at a marathon expo. So
Oh, okay.
the running space is a whole nother space that's trying to understand. I actually do any running?
No, I ran cross country in high school, but
Okay.
yeah, no, it doesn't agree with me as an old
Yeah.
person.
So one of the cool things about our Trifundit platform is that you can actually turn on and turn off activities. So it's not just for cyclists, it's actually for any activity that tracks by miles or meters.
Okay.
So cyclists, runners, walkers, swimmers, paddle sports, so like kayakers and stand-up paddleboard and so forth.
Yep.
I actually tried to do the running thing for a while, and I actually broke my hip. And so
Oh, wow.
I was like, I think I'll just stick to the bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna be at the Palm Beach Marathon
Oh,
this
okay.
weekend. It's actually a qualifier for the Boston Marathon,
Yeah.
and they're just to kind of talk to the runners and so forth in that space.
Yeah, one of my good cycling buddies, he was actually a host on the show the first year, Sean Remy. He qualified for the Boston Marathon and
Oh
and
wow.
ran the Boston Marathon one year. Yeah. He's from
Okay.
Sacramento, but yeah, it's a big deal. I've always admired, like, when you think about triathlon, uh, as someone who could run as a young, I could really run when I was a kid. I ran
Yeah.
on the track team and, like I said, cross country a little bit. Um, but man, like, it's really physically very hard on your joints. And
Yeah.
some people, I guess, obviously are able to do it late in life. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, my hips. So I had this thing. I had a buddy of mine that was he didn't make the Olympics, but he was Olympic level track, went to the training center and whatnot. And anyway, I told him I was going to run a marathon when I turned 30. That was like a life goal, you know. This is when I'm about 28, 27, 28, or, and he's
Yeah.
like, he gave me this advice. He goes, "Oh, okay, well, have you been running?" I said, "No, not at all. I play basketball, but I haven't been on any like real running." And he says, "Okay, well, just run by the minute. Don't run by the mile." So he says, you
Mm.
start off, he says, people want to go too hard, too fast, and they end up getting injured. So he says, start with, like, it's going to sound silly, but he says, just go run for 5 minutes. And then, do that for like a week and a half or so. And then maybe
Yeah.
push it up to 7, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. And then over time, you'll get to your 3 hour run. But, that's a good strategic way. So that's what I did. So I started doing it, and,
Yeah.
uh, and I was having no problems, but then I got to, where I was running like an hour and a half. And when I would come, it didn't happen the first couple times, but when I'd come back, my hip was super inflamed. My left hip was
Mm.
so bad, and I'd be limping I'd have to walk the last little bit back to my
Yeah.
house. And anyway, so I went to the doctor, and then he said that, he gave me some bunch of bad news outlook, and he wanted me to go do all these tests. And I thought, I'm only 29 years old. I'm not going to find out that I'm not capable of doing anything like this, or, physical. And that made
Yeah.
me lean. I was cycling a lot at that time, but not like I do now. And that made me lean into cycling more. And
Yeah.
since I've done that, I really haven't had any real hip issues or any other issues to speak of. So, um, but yeah, I've always admired, though, somebody that can go
Yeah.
swim, and then go run, and then hop on a bike is like, whoa, man,
Yeah. I did one triathlon long back in 2008, and I was like, you know, the swimming thing's a bad thing for me, but I had a similar thing with my running. I had decided that I was going to run a half marathon. I'd been
Hmm.
cycling, and I told my wife, I said, I think I'm going to just change it up a little bit and start training to run a half marathon. And I went out too hard and started having a little pain in my hip.
Yeah,
And I thought it was just, new exercise and so forth. Went and saw the doctor. They took an X-ray. It's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with you. So I just kept running on it.
yeah,
And about 3 weeks before the half marathon, I was still running, but like I would limp all day. And so I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do this. And finally
yeah,
went and saw I was going to a chiropractor doing all this stuff, and they're like, yeah, it's just, they're stretching me and all this stuff.
yeah.
Finally, I went to see this uh, doctor, and he's like, why are you not on crutches? And I'm like, well, I've been told there's nothing wrong with me. He goes, I could look at you and see there's something wrong with you. You can't walk. And I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's true. But So he sent me to get an MRI, and I actually had cracked my femoral neck from the top to the bottom. Basically, my early on pain was a stress fracture, and I just kept running on it like a dingus. And finally,
Yeah.
now I have three screws in my hip. But but I thought, okay, I healed from that, and a couple of years later, I was like, I want to go out and finish what I started. So I started training again for the half marathon. I was doing great, and
Hmm.
then they canceled it the weekend before, so
Oh,
I
gee.
still haven't, still I haven't been able to do it. But my goal for 2025 is to run. Actually, I'm going to run a full marathon. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
just since we've launched Trifundit, I'm trying to really enter into those spaces, and I'm already in the cycling space, but trying to enter into the running space and just understand the mentality and the ethos of that culture, and also just as I'm getting older, just kind of changing up my health routines and so forth as well.
sure. Well, it's hard to beat running from a efficiency standpoint, like if you're got a busy day, you can get out for a
Yeah,
half hour run and really get some great physical exercise out of that. Whereas, cycling tends to take a lot longer.
it
Swimming's
really
also
does.
pretty efficient like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, that's interesting because I think a lot of athletes are people that are maybe not you want to say athletes, but active adults that you get used to. But pain's part of it. You're going through there's muscle pain, just joint pain. It's just part of the program. So you end up becoming really good at dealing with that. And then so
yeah,
you just think, oh, well, it's just part of it, and you just keep going, you know.
yeah,
But then you find out you got a fractured hip. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm such a knucklehead, but it's
yeah.
easy to
I went
do
when
though.
I
Yeah.
when I went in for surgery, they were all the nurses were like, "You're way too young to be in here." I know I'm young, but I'm just stupid. Like I should have stopped running on it, and I didn't. But it's all good. It all healed well, and it's a fun story to tell. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the hip is something that a lot of cyclists go through because, when you crash, a lot of times it's in a corner and the
yeah,
first thing that hits is your hip. And actually, I just went on a sales retreat with the Pacific Northwest team at Giant USA, and one of the guys there is getting a hip replaced, and it's all from a crash that he had, and he's
yeah,
been dealing with it for a couple years now, and but it's just not healing, and so now he went in and got it looked at. It's been a process, but now he's getting his hip replaced, and
yeah,
yeah, in my territory, there's probably three or four people that I know that have had hip
yeah,
replacements from cycling related injuries, and they are too
yeah.
young. Generally they're doing it on older people.
Yeah, I
And
just
isn't
won't let my wife listen to this podcast because she'll like
yeah.
stay on your trainer. So
Yeah. 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 Well, it's interesting. Like if you read the hip replacement statistics, right? The mortality rate with hip replacements, it's kind of crazy. But it's
yeah,
because generally speaking, it's someone who's older and maybe not athletic and it suffers a fall and then they have to get
yeah,
their hip replaced and it starts this whole spiral for them. But yeah, I was kind of surprised to learn the mortality rate with hip replacements.
yeah.
Kind of nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a buddy I ride with a lot, and he both of his hips have been replaced. So I kind of call him the Bionic Man because
Yeah.
and both of them have come from cycling accidents,
Yeah.
and landed on each side and had to have both of them replaced different times. So it's a real deal.
Is he able to ride pain free?
Um, I know he rides. He
Hmm.
he's actually older now. He's close to 70, but
Okay.
he's like one of the strongest riders I know. And I think he just has a high pain tolerance and just
Sure.
keeps going at it. It's all he does. I mean, he puts hundreds of miles in a week, so I think he just kind of lives with it. It's cycling's his life and it's what he does, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
As, as we get older, yeah. As a young person, I raced BMX and then did downhill and dual slalom and all this crazy extreme dirt jumping. And then, now I'm road and gravel. Very, very
Yeah.
boring by those standards, but you want to keep it going as long as you can. And
Yeah.
when you hear somebody that's been through something as traumatic as two hip replacement surgeries and they're still able to go,
Yeah.
that's encouraging, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I love about cycling too is, it is a longevity sport. Like it's not something you have to give up too young. And, some great guys I ride with are, 70s, I've ridden with a
Yeah,
guy that's in his 80s, still riding, so,
right.
if it, allows you to stay active and if you're safe and, you know, um, yeah, I'm saying not going to get out there race, but, it's a
Yeah.
great activity and something you can actually do for a long time.
Yeah, it's one of the things have you heard of NICA? Is NICA in Florida, do you know? It's
I'm not
a
sure.
it's a inner I forget how they call it, but NICA is an acronym for something, but it's high school mountain bike racing.
Okay.
And I can't believe I can't remember what it is off the top of my head right now. That's killing me.
We don't
But
have many mountains in Florida, so
yes, yeah. I have yeah, but so NICA was like it started in Berkeley, it's mountain bike racing, and I coached a NICA team for a couple of years, and that was one of the things I told the kids. It's like the bike will always be there for you, so your interest in it may come and go. The seasonality, some people are fair weather cyclists, some people ride year
hmm
round. You might not ride for a couple of years, but the bike will be there. And this, I'm going to teach you how to do this thing. And it's
Yeah,
something you can carry with you the rest of your life and feel comfortable if you get, the opportunity to ride a bike.
yeah,
But yeah, what you were describing, like when you were growing up with the mongoose,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then you just like it, what usually happens is girls, that happens. And
yeah.
girls, in order to date a girl, you need a
You,
car,
you can't
right?
really take them on your bike.
So pretty
Yeah,
soon the bike's just like, I got to get a car, and
yeah,
then so now I can date girls or, and so a lot of people lose the bike for a period of time. And then when they reconnect with it, they realize, oh man, this is a lot of fun,
yeah,
and yeah, I really miss this. I didn't even know I was missing it, but now I do miss it. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so that's what you went through is not all that uncommon,
yeah. And I think it's such a great thing for your mental health too. As you're
Oh
getting
yeah,
older and career wise, you're kind of driving and to have something you can just go and kind of check out and, you know,
yeah,
mental space. I know for me, that's been such a huge part of my cycling journey is just having that, you know, 2 or 3 hours on the bike, just hear the
yeah.
hear the wheel and the wind, and it makes a big difference in your emotions and mental health.
Oh, I totally agree. I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast sometimes, and he's always talking
hmm
about this voluntary adversity. And
hmm
that when you decide to go do something hard, uh, it makes the rest of the day easier, makes you
Yeah,
easier to deal with because you've
yeah,
released this tension out of you and you've done something really hard. And no matter the hard thing that comes your way, you're just more prepared. It's not that big a deal. You just
yeah.
already,
It's true.
and so that's something he says that I really relate to, and it is hard to explain to somebody that doesn't do it, it's like,
Right.
uh, yeah, it's like a foreign concept. I always feel like it's kind of, well, you're a pastor. So
Yeah,
I always feel like I'm in sales. So politics and religion, like are
yeah,
areas where you kind of got to stay out of that lane.
yeah, yeah,
Occasionally you can drift in and talk about it, you know, but, I, as a rule, try to stay out of it. And I also feel like, um, you know, fitness and diet, or it just depends. Like these are areas where people will just turn you off,
yeah,
that if you start talking too much about these things, a lot of times people are
yeah,
like, oh, brother, okay, here we go. This guy's gonna, you know, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess maybe as a salesperson, I think about a lot of the social dynamics maybe a little too much. I'm always trying to read the room. That's not to say that
yeah,
I'm disingenuous, but I don't want to go down a road that's maybe going to lose somebody or,
yeah,
yeah, but you got to be careful kind of talking about, you know, your fitness
yeah.
journey,
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's, for me, I do have a faith background and have been a pastor for 30 years, but
Yeah.
like even in the nonprofit space or raising money to fight human trafficking, I think regardless of um, you know, faith background, no faith background, we all have a desire to make our lives count, right?
Hmm.
We all want to have something that says that, there's significance to what we do, there's purpose and, why we're breathing here and so forth. And I think that's why like causes like whether that's, MS or, St. Jude's or whatever, I think it connects us as humans to something that's bigger than us.
Hmm.
And I think that's where, the merger of fitness and philanthropy or generosity and these fundraising events or something like Trifundit, using it to support a cause that you're passionate about. It kind of gets you outside of, this that I'm just an individual, but I'm connected to something bigger than me.
Yeah.
And so that's why even like when we do these rides, it's not a religious ride, it's not a Christian ride. It's a ride for a cause that whether you're you know Buddhist, Baptist, or atheist, we all see the needs in humanity and we can do something about it. And I think that's where I think like cycling and fitness is really a great vehicle for that because it's something we already individually are passionate about and it doesn't take much to connect that to something that's outside of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's good that you can be, I know there's a Christian-based cycling organization here in the Bay Area where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah, I see the jerseys all the time, and I'm
Oh, do
not
you?
too sure where they're headquartered, but yeah, they're a great group. I've run into them several times,
Yeah.
yeah, but so let's talk about did you grow up? Was your dad or your mom a pastor or involved in the church at
No.
all? No? So
Well,
what?
I mean, I grew up in the church, and my mom and dad were just, lay people in the church, and my dad would serve. They would serve in different areas, and
Mhm.
I, like I said, when I got in high school, I've had some, I've been blessed with some musical gifts, and so I thought I was gonna go to Nashville and be like the next, musical thing,
Uh-huh.
and went to school in Nashville and actually started serving with an inner city youth ministry at a local church, and really kind of turned my head to something different. I didn't really feel called to be a pastor, but started working with students, and that was kind of my background. I was working with teenagers and did that for years, and then got back into the music space. And but no, my parents really weren't that piece. Actually, my grandfather, believe it or not, when he was in his late 70s, early 80s, he was diagnosed with cancer and fought it and beat it. And then after that, went back to college and got a degree and became a pastor late in life.
Wow.
And yeah, he took over this little church in Ohio that was dying, and he was always kind of an inspiration to me.
Yeah.
And so like we like in our families always kind of grow up in the church, but there were really no pastors in our church except for my grandfather, and
Hmm.
it was late in life. And yeah, so I've been blessed. We've been here in Florida for 28 years. My kids have all grown up here, and we've served at the same church for 28 years. It's a large multi-site church here in Florida, and now currently I'm not actually on staff at the church anymore. I'm full-time building Trifundit, but still do some leadership development and coaching with the team and the staff there at the church.
Wow. Yeah. That's quite a story about Grandpa, you
Isn't
know?
that crazy? Is it crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he really inspirational. He actually went back, got straight A's in college, and pretty much truncated, 4-year degree pretty quickly. So he was like full on doing it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
all the time he had. And,
It's a great
then,
example of it's never too late, you know.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it's not.
yeah, you go through a lot of people kind of feel, a certain way. They get into a certain spot in life and that's it, this is what I'm doing. But
Yeah,
um you see it a lot of times when somebody has a real life altering kind of situation and they're able to come back.
yeah,
It fuels something else within them, and it's man, that's so cool at that age
yeah,
to take on going back to college and then
yeah,
becoming a pastor.
yeah.
Wow.
It was really pretty crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
he's always been one of my heroes, and just
Yeah.
the
Easy to
dad.
see
But
why.
it is interesting how you kind of look back, like even the story I saw about my dad with the bike. You kind of look at the trajectory of your life and where you're at, and like even where I'm at right now is all these. I never saw myself in business. Like
Hmm.
I thought I would be in the church world the rest of my career, and at 53, 52 years old, decided to make a massive career change and start this company. And but uh, I look back and like never saw myself as an entrepreneur, but my dad was always an entrepreneur. I never really
Okay.
realized it.
Yeah.
Even that story about the collecting cans, he kind of instilled in me this drive to kind of if you want something, it's worth working for to get it. And my grandma. So all those stories it's been
Yeah.
always kind of fun to look back and kind of go, okay, what's got me to where I am today? And all those
Sure.
stories have kind of you know convalesced around this one moment in my life.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you are a collection of all your experiences,
Yeah,
and
it's
you know,
true.
you can dismiss some and then, you know, make others your focal point, and it can lead you in a bunch of different directions, like you're going through right now, from
Yeah,
pastor to entrepreneur.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, well, so okay, so what is the do you have any specific goals for Trifunded beyond raising money for your specific human trafficking? Obviously,
yeah,
it's probably pretty exciting to think that this could be something that really funds a lot of charities and helps make a difference all around,
yeah.
not just in the human trafficking space.
Yeah. So yeah, when we launched Trifundit, we launched it kind of as a B2B model. So we have about 8 nonprofit organizations that are partners with us on the platform that somebody could go on and choose one of those nonprofits. We also have a search engine on the platform that has about 9,000 different nonprofit organizations that somebody can go on and choose. So really, our you know our big dream is that people who are passionate about cycling, people who are passionate about running, walking, fitness, that they would make every mile matter, put purpose behind their whatever they do, and find a cause that they can make the world better. So whether
Yeah.
that's you know we have an organization that's on our platform that's a partner with us called Operation 300, and they they care for the kids of fallen soldiers, Gold Star families, and incredible organization that is doing mentoring and ongoing relationship with these kids who have lost their dads or their moms, in
Yeah.
service. We have a really cool organization in the Chicago area that does empowerment for young leaders and in politics and nonprofit space and arts. And so there's all these different areas that are making a difference in the world, that are really making impact. And so our dream really is that to build a community of people who use their everyday fitness to change the world, whether that's through things like fighting human trafficking or feeding the hungry or digging wells in Africa. There's
Hmm.
all sorts of clean water projects. There's all sorts of places that the world needs people to invest in. And And so, our hope is that people would, check out Trifundit. There's an easy kind of pathway on there. You go on our platform at trifundit.com, and it actually, you sign up and it walks you through step by step how to set up your own profile. On the kind of technical side of it, the way it works is, your profile, you connect your fitness app to your profile. So we have Strava, Garmin, Peloton, Fitbit, Aura, Under Armour, all the major players on there that you can actually connect your fitness tracker, and it actually tracks your miles every time you go out and you exercise. And then at the end of the month, all those miles are calculated against individual sponsors that you invite to be part, to support you in your cause. And their credit card and debit cards deducted that amount real time. So if I ride 500 miles this month, if somebody sponsored me a penny a mile, their credit card is going to be deducted $5 that month, and it starts over the next month. So
Mhm.
it's a really simple process. And somebody goes on our platform, they can search our search engine or choose one of the several organizations are on our platform,
Mhm.
that they can be a part of. So that's really our dream. We're early startup, and really, our dream is to find some people who are passionate about making a difference in their world and love cycling, love, that want to, connect that as a motivational, inspirational piece to kind of ride more miles or run more miles or walk more miles, whatever that is. And you can
Yeah.
actually I think I said you can actually turn on multiple sports. So if you're a cyclist and a runner, or you're a cyclist and a swimmer, you can actually turn on those activities, and your fitness tracker would track just those activities and capture your miles for those things.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of our listeners will find themselves in I've talked to so many where they're just like, well, I want to do something, but I just don't know how to do it. Or,
Yeah,
if you don't have a social media following, so to speak,
right.
it's going to be hard to properly promote or advertise that you're doing this event. So having
Yeah.
something like Trifundit behind it, where you have, like you said, you have the templates
Yeah, what
where,
we do is we on the Trifunded side, we really try to encourage the individual, and then we communicate with the sponsors. So once somebody signs on our platform, they're going to get a welcome email that says, "Hey, if you haven't finalized your platform, do that." But here's a template you can use to copy and put in your email, or a text message. I found personally, that just sending um, I'm kind of you know I don't have any boundaries on my if you're in my contact list in my phone, I'll send
Mhm.
you a text and just say, hey, here's what I'm doing this year. Here's what I'm trying to raise. Would you be willing to partner with me at the minimum of a penny a mile? And it has a link to my profile. And I've had very few people tell me no.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
um, so and it adds up. I'm again, I think my average right now is like $1.50 a mile is
Whoa.
how much I'm raising a mile. So, you know, if you, and the sponsor is actually able to cap that. So, like, if you go out and you do 1,000 miles in a week, it's like, oh crap, I just, broke the
Yeah.
bank.
What have I signed on for? Yeah.
What have I signed up for? No, but a lot of nonprofits. Here's the thing too, and nonprofits, you know, they're um, you know, they're looking at big donor bases, like people who are giving thousands and so forth. Well, most people, I can't go and give a big check to a nonprofit, but I can do what I can do and ride and invite people to do it. So it's maybe not going to be 10,000 one time, but over my lifetime, I could actually contribute thousands and thousands of dollars to a cause that I'm passionate about just by doing what I already love. So, we provide those scripts for um, individuals on the platform. You can actually send text and emails and social posts from the platform itself. We also do motivational stuff. So every week, as a cyclist, you're going to get an email from Trifund that says, "Hey, this week you rode this many miles and you raised this much money. Keep it up." Um, and then at the end of the month, each sponsor actually gets a report on your progress. So, um, you
Oh,
know,
that's cool.
hey, James rode 452 miles this month. Your contribution is, $15. Thanks for supporting, and it's data driven, the charity that James is writing for. So all those things are kind of built into our ecosystem to be able to communicate and help motivate individuals who are on our platform.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier for sure.
Yeah.
And do you,
Yeah.
is it the kind of thing where you could put I guess you just link in your bio on your
Yeah.
Instagram profile, and then somebody can
Hmm.
click there and then just go and sign
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Link in your bio and Facebook, all those pieces. Again, I think, just emphasizing it, the ask is so small because, you know, again, for runners, pennies a mile's not a lot because if you're probably not running as many miles as a cyclist rides, but for avid cyclists who are riding, you know, two or 300 miles a month, or
Yeah.
more, some ride thousands a month, a penny a mile goes a long way and that can
Sure.
add up quite a bit. And so we're about ready to release a couple new iterations onto the platform. So we're about ready to release a Teams um,
Oh,
opportunity so that you and three or four other people could actually join a team and select a cause, and your combined miles go towards that. You have a little competition piece of it as well.
okay.
And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, exciting. All right, so the best way if you're an audience member here and you're interested, tryfundit.com. That's the best way to sign up.
Trifundit.com. You
Yeah.
can follow us on social media at Instagram at Trifundit as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, we love to have you check it out and try it out. And
Yeah.
we think it has the opportunity to really make a huge impact in the world around us for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. I think it's encouraging to know that, there's people like yourself out there looking beyond um, just for yourself and what you're passionate about. You created this whole platform for people to really
Yeah,
maximize their contributions to, or even just get started in a charity endeavor.
yeah,
So yeah, I really appreciate what you've done here. I think it's really cool, and hopefully we get some signups on the
yeah.
Trifundit.
That'd be
And
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I,
yeah,
I love what Mother Teresa said. She said, "You can do some things, I can do some things, but together we can do great things." And so, like, I think
yes,
sometimes we underestimate the impact we can have in just small decisions that we make on a daily basis. And like your listeners are already making that small sacrifice every day, every week by, commuting or being on their bike, being out in the mountains. And so
yeah,
like, if an army of people did that, together we could actually make a dramatic difference in the world around us.
yeah, yeah, no doubt. All right, James. Well, hey, thank you so much for taking the time this morning to come on here and explain about your organization. And we wish you nothing but success going forward. And
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. All right. So everybody out there, thank you for listening to this week's edition, and check out tryfundit.com and get started on your charity journey. Thanks for listening, everybody.